Okay, so I'm presenting to the UN from the position of the IRC, or the International Rescue Committee. So our mission is to help people whose lives and livelihoods are shattered by conflict and disaster to survive, recover, and gain control of their future. And right now, one of our main focuses is South Sudan and their civil war. So in case no one knows what's happening there, currently the recent civil war has been due to disagreements between ethnicities, specifically the Dinka and the Nuer ethnicity, the Dinka being represented by the current president, Salva Kiir, and the Nuer being represented by Kiir's main rival and current rebel leader, Riek Machar. Recently, they signed an agreement to hold fire and rule together until the 2022 elections that are going to be held in South Sudan, but many don't see that as being possible due to a similar agreement being signed in 2015, with that falling through in around a year. So South Sudan currently has about 2.5 years to hold up the current deal that they signed, but many are worried that this isn't going to hold up. Another worry is that unstable neighbors, specifically Sudan, could stir influence and more violence into South Sudan as well. So many of the current issues as a result of the war are famine, low levels of food all over the country, people fleeing their homes to avoid conflict, which is in turn creating a refugee crisis, as well as child soldiers and sexual violence all over the nation. As an NGO, the IRC is currently expanding the capacity of our people into South Sudan, that being clinics, training, booths, stuff like that, to help provide medical, psychological, and legal support to survivors of the war, and also survivors of sexual assault. We are also training people in basic health care needs and reproductive health care, and we are also working to restore wells and sanitation services throughout the areas to prevent the spread of diseases. We're also providing the South Sudanese refugees that are trying to re-enter their nation emergency aid, as well as job and life training. With this deal happening, many people are fleeing back into the country, trying to find their families and such, which is also resulting in a more recent crisis of still not enough services going around to help these people. We're looking for help from the UN to support our needs as well as give support to the people. According to BBC in 2014, there were about 7,500 troops deployed from the UN on the ground, but since then there hasn't been much from the UN. We're trying to help out the civilians that aren't part of the war, as well as keep the peace that is currently being made. We want to prevent violence as well as enforce that. We believe that having a sit down with Kiir and Machar, as well as other neighboring nations, maybe the president of Sudan as well, and having them talk and have a reminder of why this deal had been signed, and what is at stake for the nation as well. We would also like to try and find a way to strategize a peaceful election in 2022 for the people of South Sudan, as the safety of the people trying to vote is also at stake right now. And our main goal is just to stop the violence, try and stop the sexual violence and ethnic cleansing that has been happening. Our NGO has been working close with the people of South Sudan, but at the moment we aren't really trusted. Many of the NGOs aren't being trusted and have been kind of pushed out of the nation, and support from the Blue Hats and other peacekeepers could be helpful, not only to help us further continue our aid to the people of South Sudan, but also to keep the violence at a minimum, to possibly spread the word of our motivation. And this enforcement would also help kind of keep the peace that has recently been made. Many people don't trust us, and the violence towards the IRC and other peacekeepers has simmered down, but it's still not what we want it to be. The blue helmets would be placed to not only help the people of South Sudan, but also help the many NGOs being targeted within the nation. The violence is at a minimum right now, and even though it's still occurring, I think that it would be the best time to bring in people. It would be the best opportunity to bring in people to kind of enforce this lull of violence.